team. So this video is going to cover suburban ecology. Now, what does the word ecology mean? Ecology is basically the study of how creatures, organisms, animals, plants, and all that interact with each other and their surroundings. Now, the school is situated in Lafayette, right? And we know that that is a suburb of San Francisco, right? We are considered the suburbs. And animals and plants are going to interact with each other in a different way than they would if they were in a wild nature setting. So one of the great examples is the crows that live on the school grounds, right? We've got the crows that frequent the blacktop, right, the big playground all the time, especially after snack and lunch, because they know they're gonna get a free meal, right? Whatever you guys leave around, they're gonna go get to eat. Now, crows in the wild don't have school children leaving crumbs and such around for them. They have to go find their food. They either have to catch their food in like lizards or bugs, or they have to wait for others to catch their food for them. So what I'm talking about when I say others catching their food for them, this morning I actually found the perfect example of this, and I found outside of my house a stray cat had caught a squirrel and was eating the squirrel, and I'll insert some clips in just a second. But the crows then surrounded the trees. You could hear them, they were going nuts. And the cat's just sitting there eating its squirrel, but a cat can only eat so much. So when the cat's done with the squirrel and walks away, who do you think's gonna get the squirrel? This is part of the suburban ecology. This is a cat, a neighborhood cat, that has caught a squirrel and it's eating the squirrel. So what the cat's gonna do is it's gonna eat the squirrel, and a cat's stomach is a lot more acidic than a barn owl's stomach. So a barn owl is gonna be not able to digest the bones in the fur, whereas the cat will be able to digest the bones in the fur a little bit better. But the cat might not be able to digest all the fur, so it'll probably spit it up in a fur ball. And I think that little dot there is the squirrel's head. Cat is here, and he's left the squirrel, and we can hear tons and tons of crows overhead. So the meow. Yeah, so once the cat leaves, the crows will come in and we'll get the rest of the squirrel. Another great example of suburban ecology is the great blue heron that lives just up Leland Drive, right by the school. And this heron lives probably in the reservoir, which you might not know, but there's a little reservoir right up Leland past that little church that's right next to the school. So that reservoir is not someplace that normal people can go. I don't really know exactly much about it because we can't go, but my best guess is that we know it's a body of water, and I bet you it's just for reserves for Lafayette drinking water. But it's a body of water, and herons usually live near lakes or rivers, streams, but this heron lives by this reservoir, which is really interesting because you don't usually see herons in the suburbs. We don't see herons around, but because there's a man-made reservoir just over the hill, we see the heron on that grassy hill that surrounds the reservoir. So normally in the wild, like I said, herons are by natural bodies of water, but because this heron was presented with a man-made body of water, it decided that that was going to be a good place for it to settle. So interesting how this bird has decided to interact with its environment, and its environment being mostly near humans. I'm in my car and I'm just going home, and I saw this beautiful heron in the field up just past the school. Been watching it for a little while, and I really wish I caught it on camera, but it gets low, gets its head low, and it starts walking really slowly, and I was thinking, what is it doing? And sure enough, it pounced on some form of prey. I don't know if it was a bug or a lizard. I'm too far away to see, but it's absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous bird. So I'm at this oak tree just beyond the sandboxes, and you can see here that the tree has grown around the fence. So in the wild, trees obviously don't come into contact with fences and don't have to grow around them. But this tree has changed its growing behavior to grow around this fence. Now, was the fence here first or was the tree here first? My best guess is that the fence was here first and that the tree then came and grew around it. So that's something that you'll see in suburbs and cities that you wouldn't see in the natural environment. And yet the tree, you can see it's got lots and lots of leaves, it's still healthy. So it's able to change its behavior, change its growing behavior, and still survive in a suburban environment. So all of these are examples of how the animals interact with each other and their environment, and how they might change their behaviors to what more wild animals would do if they're living in an actual wild landscape. It's really interesting to see how plants and animals will do things differently or will change or interact with their landscape when presented with humans and human buildings and roads and all that. It's very, very interesting. Another really fascinating piece of suburban ecology that I have come in contact with recently, or talked to my daughter with recently, is when we were collecting the acorns for the acorn eating video. And we live on a pretty quiet street in that there's not a lot of cars that go by it, and then we like to do this big walk. And so we start off on a quiet street, and then we go down another quiet street, and it's just residential, right? It's just houses on both sides. And so we're going up and down these quiet streets, and we're looking for the acorns, and we're not finding either any acorns, and all the acorns we're finding are all busted open. And we're seeing tons and tons of squirrels, just squirrels everywhere, oak trees everywhere, no acorns, and no cars. So I say to my daughter, when we turn on the main street, because we're about to turn onto the main street, do you think we're going to see more cars? She said, yes. And I said, what do you think the squirrels think about the cars? And she says, they're probably scared of the cars because they're noisy and they go fast, and sometimes they hit the squirrels. So we turn onto the main street, and sure enough, within the first minute, 4 cars go zooming past us. And we turn again onto the real main street, and just car after car after car. What we also notice, so there's lots of cars on this main street, and we also notice that there's not as many oak trees, not as many trees in general. And I don't think we saw a single squirrel while we were out walking there on that main street. So with all these different observations, we put it all together to paint this picture. On the side streets, there's not as many cars. So either the squirrels don't get hit as often, so there's more squirrels, or they choose to live there because it's a lot quieter. There's also more trees on the side streets, and with all of those things, more squirrels are going to equal fewer acorns, right? Or on the opposite end, if you're on a main street, there's going to be lots more cars, fewer trees, fewer squirrels, more acorns. So where would we want to look for acorns? Well, not on those quiet side streets, but instead on that busy main street where there's no squirrels. There's no competition, right? So that's a really interesting uh, piece of this puzzle, right? Of this suburban ecology puzzle, right? Where you look at all these different things and you make all these different kinds of observations to paint these pictures. So just like the cat and the heron and even that tree, these squirrels are adapting or changing their behavior to the environment where people and cars are present. So I encourage you to go on a walk in your neighborhood and just start observing. Write down your observations. Oh, do you have a lot of trees? Do you have a lot of squirrels? Do you see feral cats, right? Wild, stray cats. Take some notes about your observations that you're seeing and then start to paint the picture of your neighborhood ecology. If you've got a lot of feral cats, you're probably not going to have that many birds. If you've got lots of plants, you're going to have a lot more birds. And then what does that mean? A lot more birds means a lot more poop on your cars. Right? You're going to paint these interesting little pictures to see how these plants and animals are interacting with each other, and then how they're interacting with us humans as being a main part of their environment and their ecology. All right, I cannot wait to hear what you guys come up with, and I hope you have a really fun walk.